Hope you have enough ammo.
It's been nearly 5 years since our favorite intergalactic duo, Ratchet and Clank, have landed on another PlayStation console. Heralded as one of the premier games to play on the PlayStation 5, is this newest game in this expansive Sony franchise up to par in its next generation offering? Join me as I attempt to do some rift diving to find out how this classic franchise holds up as one of PS5's crown jewels. Before we go headfirst into this first rift, I'd like to mention this is Ratchet and Clank's 16th installment. 16th! Needless to say, this duo has traveled to many galaxies and thwarted many villains for the past 2 decades, and need I say it? It looks like there is no stopping Ratchet and his robotic sidekick Clank from jumping, shooting, and outmaneuvering their way into Rift Apart and potential future entries. The story finds our intergalactic heroes, Ratchet and Clank, attending a massive parade, honoring their previous adventures as heroes of the galaxies. Clank has a gift for Ratchet to receive at the end of the parade, but guess what? It doesn't go so well. As you would expect, their fun is interrupted because series veteran villain Dr. Nefarious just loves taking copious rounds of rhinos to the face, yet continues to ask for more. Ratchet and Clank don't seem to be too upset when Dr. Nefarious manages to snag Clank's gift intended for Ratchet, the Dimensionator, opening dimensional rifts all over the place and seriously ruining the mood. It seems to be that Ratchet and Clank are so accustomed to this behavior that they merely shrug it off and look forward to going commando on Dr. Nefarious yet again, while upping their arsenal in preparation for a full frontal assault. Oh boy. The dynamic duo later find themselves split apart from one another, and it's now up to both Ratchet and Clank to reunite with each other, all the while ending Dr. Nefarious's oppressive interdimensional reign. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart features a new protagonist in the name of Rivet, a Lombax from a dimension other than Ratchet's. She plays identically to Ratchet, and your progression with weapons and gadgets seamlessly transfer between the two characters. Without getting too much into the story of Rift Apart with the intention of not spoiling it, Rivet serves as a very likable character in her own right, as she battles her own anxieties as she struggles to cope with some traumatic life experiences while navigating the unpredictability of the entire world being turned inside out due to the rift tears created by Dr. Nefarious. It is because of Rivet that Clank is taken away with her at the start of the game, separating Ratchet from Clank. Much of the story builds upon the relationship building between Rivet and Clank, and it is satisfying to see them grow to rely on one another, just like it was to see Ratchet and Clank's relationship sprout and evolve nearly 20 years ago. Don't fret though, if you are too worried that Ratchet and Clank don't get their time to shine in this game as a duo, you'll be happy with their representation and should lay your fears to rest. Ratchet also finds a sidekick in his story arc in Kit, a robot who shares many similarities to Clank in appearance and has her own series of issues, like Rivet, relating to insecurities and feelings of despair and unworthiness. Like Rivet, Kit is a very compelling character that adds numerous uplifting moments that embellish the story in a meaningful and whimsical way. This is a Ratchet and Clank story done with very heartfelt moments that are very enduring for longtime series fans, and are also an excellent starting point for players just diving into Ratchet and Clank. I'm a huge fan of the Ratchet and Clank franchise, and I'm happy to see it done so well in this entry. The mesmerizing Pixar-like quality to the graphics and presentation of its cutscenes and gameplay bring to life this incredibly detailed experience that is truly a sight to behold. Speaking of graphics, this is certainly a game that truly showcases the power of the PS5 and its graphical capabilities. Many people mention the game's Pixar-like aesthetic, and they are spot on in that description. Rift Apart seriously looks like you are playing a game that has been completely rendered in movie-like graphics and animation, and it's a thrill to see Insomniac Games truly realize the world of Ratchet and Clank with the power of the PS5's hardware. Ratchet and Rivet control and animate exactly as you would expect them to, and NPCs navigate the world in their wonderfully cartoonish ways. Guns emit colorful and dazzling explosions that illuminate the play space with an assortment of vivid particle effects. The game's first planet, where you play through Nefarious City, is a brilliant and densely populated neon metropolis, where its rain showers give way to the building's luminous and reflective surfaces. The city has many little alleyways and hidden paths that reward players who venture off the beaten path for gold bolts and armor pieces that change the player's appearance. The liveliness and hustle and bustle of Nefarious City contrast greatly with the second planet, Sargasso, by opening up the map significantly, offering a myriad of ways to traverse the planet's Jurassic era-like environments. As an added bonus, developer Insomniac Games have 3 graphical options for players to choose from. Fidelity Mode is the default option, where the game outputs dynamically at resolutions up to 4K with ray tracing at 30 frames per second. Performance Mode is a 60 FPS mode that sacrifices ray tracing for a smoother frame rate. Performance Mode outputs at a minimum of 1080p up to 1800p. The final mode is Performance RT, which stands for Ray Tracing, which targets a 60 FPS performance with ray tracing and 1080p to 1440p dynamic resolution. I played Rift Apart mainly in the Performance RT mode, as having 60 frames per second is my preferred way of playing any game. The added ray tracing truly enhances the game visually and is such a huge component to this game, as many of the game's surfaces and environments sport reflective textures that magnify the power that ray tracing adds to the Ratchet and Clank universe. On occasion, I would switch the game over to Fidelity Mode to see the game with its maximum flair in the visuals department, and although the difference is a bit noticeable when it comes to the density of NPCs and other minute details like the character's fur or the amounts of cars flying in the sky, I felt like the sacrifice in frames per second was too much for me. To have the best of both worlds, in this case, ray tracing at 60 FPS, is absolutely incredible in my book, and I hope other developers try to follow what Insomniac has done here by offering players multiple ways of experiencing the game. This wouldn't be a proper Ratchet and Clank game if it didn't have the incredible variety of weapons and platforming elements, would it? Thankfully, the elements that have made Ratchet and Clank such an iconic franchise in action platforming history are represented in arguably their best form yet. The weapons are both inventive, amusing, and completely insane, and are sure to delight longtime fans and newcomers alike. The traversal and platforming also plays a big role in this game as well, and even though the weapons truly are among the highlights of this game, the platforming sections and various set-piece moments shine a magnificent light on its classic platforming roots. As a player who grew up playing Insomniac's Spyro the Dragon series all the way through to this latest installment in Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, I can clearly see that the developers have truly incorporated all of the awesome mechanics and elements of their greatest games and crammed it into this love letter of action platforming. Like Insomniac's older titles focusing on collectibles, gold bolts return, rewarding players who manage to snag these rail bolts with cheats, modifiers, and other fun tweaks that players can equip to modify their experience. Want infinite ammo? Find some gold bolts and have endless fun blasting enemies with countless rounds of your favorite weapons. The swing shot makes its triumphant return and acts as it previously had, by allowing players to swing across chasms and gaps by swinging to grapple points. The wall-running shoes allow both Ratchet and Rivet to run along panels of walls indicated by their arrows, and rail grinding makes their fun return in some awesome set-piece moments. Magna Boots return to give players traversal along magnetic surfaces, along with the ability to skate along environments with thruster pack-like boots. The most important addition to this game is the rift tether. This mechanic allows both Ratchet and Rivet to traverse rifts in the game world by pulling the rift to the player in an incredibly seamless and snappy way. Whenever prompted, the character is able to engage the rift tether by pulling the interdimensional tether toward the player, transporting the player to that specific area of the planet, or completely load in a new area entirely. This mechanic is integral to its namesake and serves as the title's key new mechanic that truly capitalizes on the PS5's SSD and is only possible on this line of PlayStation consoles. By seamlessly loading in completely new areas into the gameplay at a moment's notice, the gameplay variety and scenario building is truly mind-bending and incredibly impressive. I feel like this is really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to harnessing the potential of the PS5's hardware, and it is so nice to see that this title is an excellent showcase of an early example of just how impactful this rift tethering mechanic is in shaping the future of PS5 games that utilize the SSD. Whether the player is traversing a scripted sequence of tethers that spans numerous realms, or if it is one of the rift anomalies that appear in hidden locations on the map that reward players with armor customization, the rift tethering mechanic is a key feature that really elevates this game above its predecessors in the series. Enjoying my review of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart? Earn yourself a skill point by obliterating that like button with your favorite weapon and subscribing to the channel. At Fun My Life, I put out reviews of some of the biggest games, and if that's what you're interested in, I'd love to have you stick around. The weapons, like any other Ratchet and Clank game, remain in the spotlight this time around in Rift Apart, as the weapons in this new entry are some of the most inventive and humorous to date. The weapons run the gamut of traditional pistols to automatic rapid-fire machine guns to rocket launchers to freezing enemies into ice cubes to turning them into finely sculpted plants. Yeah, there is an insane amount of variety here, and every single weapon here serves its purpose and are equally devastating to use. My personal favorite of the bunch is the Topiary Sprinkler, which deploys a mechanism that squirts water at enemies, turning them in place into beautiful, unmenacing sculptures of lush green plants, allowing you to tear into them with other weapons or your trusty wrench. Another favorite of mine is the Headhunter, a sniper rifle that slows down time while scoped, allowing you to line up headshots or target weak points for massive damage. Some favorites return, like the Glove of Doom, the Pixelizer from the 2016 remake, and the Rhino 8, which is absolutely hilarious. I don't want to show it here because I want you all to experience it firsthand, but fans of the series surely won't be disappointed with Rhino's 8th installment. All of these weapons can be accessed from the weapon wheel, which slows down time, allowing the player to switch weapons on the fly. Weapons can also be upgraded 5 levels during the course of your initial playthrough, with the resource Raritanium, which can be found throughout the environments. Weapons can further be upgraded in Challenge Mode, the game's new Game Plus feature, that allows you to replay the game with current bolts and existing upgrades, allowing the player to further upgrade to even more powerful versions of their current weapons. The gunplay and frenetic battles are further heightened by the inclusion of the dash ability that is new to the Ratchet and Clank games, where players can dash a short distance in any direction, allowing the player to avoid precarious areas or simply get out of harm's way. Seasoned players of the franchise will be happy to know that the gameplay is nearly identical to the fantastic 2016 remake, but with added traversal options and weapon upgrades that truly add additional layers to an already well-established foundation. Although the running, gunning, and platforming are staples of Ratchet and Clank games, Clank returns as a playable character in his traditional puzzle areas, repairing rift anomalies for the game's story to progress. These moments are fun little diversions that task the players with solving puzzles by using nodes to allow a flow of Clank holograms from avoiding obstacles and making it to the exit. These little brain teasers are brief respites of fun that take you away from the normal action and exploration of the game and complement the flow of the game wonderfully. These Clank sections are also completely optional, and can be skipped by pausing the game and selecting the appropriate option if you so choose. Players also take control of Robot Glitch, who infiltrates virus-ridden areas in terminals that halt player progression. These gameplay sections involve guiding Glitch through areas infested with enemies presented as viruses, climbing along the walls and going upside down while mowing enemies down with machine gun fire and rockets. These are more action-oriented gameplay sections that provide a lot of fun tank-like combat. Many players have commented that this gameplay can prove quite disorienting with all the wall climbing and upside-down traversal, and I have to agree with them. It can potentially cause nausea in some players. Although I thoroughly enjoyed these gameplay sections and didn't get nauseous, some players may be uncomfortable with the gameplay here. This wouldn't be a PS5 game if we didn't talk about the DualSense functionality. This game, similar to Astro's Playroom, expertly showcases the best of what the PS5 controller can do. Surfaces that the players walk on are masterfully represented in the haptics on the controller, whether walking on metal, sand, or interdimensional space goo. Each element is immersive and makes you connect with the play environment that you are in. The adaptive triggers allow for precise firing of your guns and provide appropriate tension and resistance when handling your weapons. All of the controller's functionality can be turned off in the menu if you so choose, but these DualSense features definitely add a lot of fun and immersion to the experience. Speaking of menus, this game does an incredible job in the accessibility department. Thanks to the plethora of options and toggles, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is easily the most accessible game in the franchise yet, as it allows players of all levels the ability to customize their experience to their ability. Gamers with disability will also be delighted to see many options there to make sure that the game can be enjoyed and experienced fully regardless of ability. Players can tweak settings pertaining to auto-aiming weapons, to mapping certain traversal mechanics to a single button, to automatically avoiding hazards, to colorblind settings. This truly is exceptional work, and Insomniac Games need to be praised for its time and dedication to making players of all abilities get the most out of their latest game. The music and sound direction are also worth mentioning, as all of the classic characters' voice actors return to deliver exceptional character performances. The new characters introduced to Rift Apart are also done very well as well, and further promote the idea of Pixar-like production values. It's a pleasure to see so much time and care dedicated to the Ratchet and Clank universe, and the voice actors do a very good job in highlighting the game's pivotal and dramatic moments. The music is also worthy of praise, as the soundtrack expertly blends cinematic and orchestrated tracks with outer-worldly sounds and synth to create a soundtrack that very much fits the space theme of the franchise. It is also worth mentioning that some of the music in the game interacts with the haptics on the DualSense controller. Early in the game, when Ratchet approaches a club in Nefarious City, the controller reacts with increasing roundness and intensity as Ratchet feels the bass of the music permeate through the nightclub and the city. It's an effect definitely worth mentioning if players choose to forego the haptic. It is really the little things that add up to make Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart such a success. As one of the marquee launch window games for the PS5, this game definitely shows so much of what makes the PlayStation 5 such a cool piece of hardware. The graphics are truly stunning. The characters are very likable and charming. The gunplay and traversal are as tight and flashy as they have ever been, and it is fun and engaging from start to stop. This is a game that will take you anywhere from 12 to 16 hours of playtime to finish, and it is a perfect example of how action platformers should be designed. At so many points, I managed to stop, pan the camera around, and literally stare at the screen for a few minutes while gawking in awe at the amount of detail that went into its environments, characters, art, effects, and more. This is a love letter for fans of Ratchet and Clank and is also a perfect starting point for newcomers to the franchise. The story is easy to follow, and the accessibility options make this game that much more ready to be consumed by anyone who wishes to play it. For those who managed to get their own PS5 around launch, you owe yourself a playthrough of this game. It is a definite buy for me and gets my highest recommendation. If this game is any indication of what the PS5 has in store for us, then we shall continue to look forward to excellent and groundbreaking games in the future to grace this console.
I, Captain Copernicus Leslie Quad, will be your host.